Kurt Cobain hidden clues you totally missed. Number 1 is shocking. They told us the story a million times. Kurt Cobain, the grunge icon, the voice of a generation, a tortured soul who tragically took his own life in 1994. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if behind the distorted guitars, the haunting lyrics, and the media spectacle, there were clues, real, disturbing, hidden clues, that were right in front of us this entire time? In today's video, we're diving deep into the rabbit hole of secrets, inconsistencies, and dark revelations that have surrounded Cobain's life, and especially his death. From mysterious journal entries, to disturbing autopsy reports, to shady connections and symbols embedded in Nirvana's art and performances, this is the side of Kurt's story that mainstream media never wanted you to see. And trust me, clue number 1 will leave you shocked. This isn't just for the conspiracy theorists. These are real documented facts, odd behaviors, and insider whispers that raise questions even the biggest fans have missed for decades. So if you're tired of the polished narratives and ready to look beyond the surface, hit that like button right now. And make sure you're subscribed, not just to support the channel, but because YouTube's algorithm buries content like this unless you engage. Your subscription literally tells the platform, this content matters. If you're feeling generous and want to support deeper investigations like this, you can drop a super thanks down below. It makes a huge difference in keeping independent content alive. And hey, if that's not possible, no worries. Just drop a comment letting me know which clue shook you the most. Because the last revelation in this video, it changes everything you thought you knew about Kurt Cobain. Stick with me until the very end. What you're about to hear may just blow your mind. Kurt Donald Cobain was born on the 20th of February, 1967, in the city of Aberdeen, in the state of Washington. From an early age, his life already seemed marked by an inner restlessness. The son of Wendy O'Connor and Donald Cobain, he had a troubled childhood. His parents divorced when he was only 9 years old, and that separation left a deep wound in Kurt, who felt divided between parents, caught in many family conflicts, environmental changes, and a persistent feeling of abandonment. Even as a child, Kurt demonstrated artistic inclinations and an introverted sensitivity. He grew up in a modest environment, attended public schools, and nurtured a passion for alternative music, punk, and heavy rock. In his teenage years, Cobain began playing guitar, writing songs, and became interested in idols like the Melvins, Sonic Youth, and Pixies, among other underground names that would become the foundation of what he later developed with Nirvana. He was shy, introspective, but creative, often withdrawn and even hostile toward fame or exposure of his personal life. In 1987, Kurt founded Nirvana alongside Chris Novoselic and, later on, Dave Grohl joined as the drummer, forming the trio that would go down in history. Their early releases captured that tension. Lyrics that spoke of alienation, pain, disillusionment, and compressive riffs that expressed contained aggression. Nirvana broke into the mainstream with the album Nevermind, 1991, and especially with the single Smells Like Teen Spirit, which became an anthem for an entire generation. Suddenly, Kurt Cobain had become the icon of a lost youth, a musical anti-hero. But that status also brought enormous pressure. Relentless touring, record label expectations, media scrutiny, public exposure of his addictions, rumors, and constant intrigue. Kurt never handled fame well. He was someone who felt safest with his back against the wall, sensing that the more success he achieved, the further he drifted from himself. On a personal level, his relationship with Courtney Love, singer of the band Hole, was always tumultuous, marked by love, jealousy, tension, emotional dependency, and mutual accusations of betrayal and manipulation. Their relationship became one of the media's favorite targets, with both exposed to endless speculation and controversy. Kurt suffered from depression, physical ailments, he claimed to have chronic stomach pain, and a long history of heroin and substance use. In 1992, for example, he overdosed in Rome, nearly losing his life, which made public the thin line between being alive and drowning in mental chaos. Throughout his career, Kurt recorded dense and personal albums. Bleach, 1989, In Utero, 1993, as well as singles and extended plays that reflected his fragmented, disturbed, and intense state of mind. He spoke openly about suicide, social alienation, guilt, and isolation. Many of his compositions were self-deprecating, almost like emotional diaries turned into music. He was a tortured poet, willing to expose his wounds in public. However, the final tragedy came on the 5th of April, 1994. Kurt Cobain was found dead in his home in Seattle, with a gunshot wound to the head from a 20-gauge shotgun, along with a note that became known as his suicide letter. He was 27 years old. The police officially concluded it was a suicide. But that was only the beginning of an uncontrollable surge of theories, alternative versions, suspicions, and questions. To this day, doubts and controversies persist that refuse the official verdict. Some of the most controversial and mysterious points that circulate include a high dose of heroin in the post-mortem toxicology analysis. It was discovered that Kurt Cobain's bloodstream contained roughly 3 times the lethal dose of heroin, a figure that resounds like a silent alarm in the case file. Many forensic critics argue that a person in such a state would be physically and neurologically incapacitated, unable to perform anything beyond the most basic motor functions, let alone execute a finely choreographed suicide. Heroin in such extremes can induce rapid respiratory depression, loss of consciousness, and complete loss of voluntary muscle control. To hold a shotgun, position it correctly, aim, squeeze the trigger, and further organize the surrounding items to mimic a suicide scene demands coherence, strength, precision, and time, all of which seem incompatible with a body overwhelmed by an overdose. Defenders of the suicide theory often point to Cobain's long history of heroin use, suggesting he developed an unusually high tolerance. But skeptics counter that no amount of tolerance would reliably permit someone to survive such a dose while retaining the physical dexterity and mental clarity to perform those sequential actions. If he injected this quantity shortly before the fatal shot, how did he manage to remain lucid long enough to write final words, set up the scene, and then pull the trigger? That glaring inconsistency becomes a hidden clue few want to acknowledge, and it may be the very fulcrum upon which the official suicide narrative stands, trembling under the weight of unanswered questions. The suicide note and the suspicious last lines, one of the most subtle yet chilling clues, lies hidden in the handwriting of Kurt Cobain's so-called suicide note. Graphologists and independent analysts have observed that the final 5 lines, the ones that explicitly reference his decision to die, appear penned in a noticeably different hand than the rest of the document. It gives the impression of an addendum stitched on afterwards, as if someone felt the original text fell short in expressing the intended conclusion. The bulk of the letter reads as a reflective, dejected examination of his disillusionment with music and the pressures around him, without an overt declaration of intent. Only in the concluding lines does the tone shift sharply, becoming personal, remorseful, even dramatic. Supporting these concerns, the documentary Soaked in Bleach presents practice writing pages allegedly found with Courtney Love, whose letter forms resemble those of the disputed lines. Could someone have rehearsed those sentences to insert them convincingly? If those final lines were forged or inserted, the emotional core of the letter, its direct farewell, may be not original, but a constructed exit ramp. That alteration would transform the note from a solemn confession into a devised tool within a cover narrative. It's a clue many miss, because to doubt the note feels to doubt the entire tragedy, and that is precisely the hidden fault line behind the narrative. Courtney Love's role. Courtney Love remains perhaps the most contested and complex figure in the Cobain story. Some theories suggest she had more than a peripheral role in what happened that night. Accusations swirl that she may have edited the suicide note, altered elements of the scene, or even commissioned someone to end the story when she perceived Kurt trying to extricate himself from a relationship, emotional, artistic, or financial. In the realm of hidden clues you totally missed, ignoring her presence means bypassing one of the most controversial characters in the narrative. Documents and recorded interviews hint that she had access to handwriting practice sheets, forensic material, or other tools that could facilitate note manipulation. She hired Tom Grant in the days before the tragedy, only later to distance herself from his discoveries. Could that have been strategic? Some investigations frame her as someone who saw Kurt's fading allegiance, his possible desire to depart, and acted to preserve her position. Whether or not she was directly involved in the fatal moment, her proximity, potential motives, and the mystery surrounding her actions make her an unavoidable subject in peeling back hidden layers of this case. Tom Grant, the investigator turned dissenter originally engaged by Courtney Love to locate Kurt Cobain following his disappearance, Tom Grant evolved into a staunch critic of the official story. He recorded conversations with Love, gathered contradictory testimonies, and unearthed discrepancies in police procedures. Grant's voice is central in Soaked in Bleach. He presents alternate timelines, questions the chain of custody, and demands reinvestigation. From his view, the suicide narrative is riddled with omissions, suspicious protocol deviations, and intentional cover-ups. Grant posits that critical steps were skipped or glossed over. Forensic checks, witness queuing, handling of the crime scene, and representation of evidence. His argument, If silent inconsistencies exist at the foundation, the whole structure wobbles. In your video script, Grant is the guide who draws many of the hidden lines behind the public face of this mystery, challenging viewers to see what mainstream retellings spin away. He is the investigator who refuses to accept silence, and offers you, the audience, new clues to question everything. The documentary, Soaked in Bleach, and re-examination of the case Soaked in Bleach is not a simple tribute or biographical piece. It is a provocative re-examination, a challenge to the official narrative. Released in 2015, it weaves recorded conversations, forensic expert voices, witness testimonies, and editorial arguments to spotlight gaps, omissions, and potential misconduct. The film unspools moments never previously seen or broadly discussed: unexplained changes in police logs, missing or delayed documentation, retracted statements, and the ambiguous handling of physical evidence. It presents voices rarely heard in mass media: Tom Grant's accounts, forensic critiques, and supportive insiders who question the original ruling. It casts serious doubt on whether investigators were ever fully transparent, or whether some evidence was suppressed to maintain the prevailing story. For a video about hidden clues, Soaked in Bleach is the turning point. What once was fringe speculation now gains public footing. It prods the question: if we're told case closed, yet countless shadows remain, maybe the true story was never intended to emerge. Federal Bureau of Investigation files and requests for reopening the case in 2021. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, released internal documents associated with public petitions and conspiracy theories regarding Kurt Cobain's death. These archives included letters from private citizens imploring the Bureau to reopen the case, responses indicating the FBI declined to involve itself due to jurisdictional constraints, and internal notes flagging inconsistencies, absence of fingerprints, oddities in handwriting, ambiguous witness statements, and recognizing public pressure for renewed scrutiny. While the FBI did not assert the authority to reinvestigate, its release of these files reignited public debate and provided raw material to independent researchers. In your video narrative, this is a dramatic pivot. If even the FBI publicly documents perceived inconsistencies, then these suspicions are not fringe claims but issues worthy of collective attention. These documents don't prove homicide or conspiracy, but they underscore how much remains unresolved and subject to doubt. Theories of faked or staged death. One of the most haunting theories is that Cobain didn't die by suicide in the conventional sense, but orchestrated, or at least consented to, a staged departure from public life. In this view, the body found may not have been fully verified or widely documented. Select images from the scene were withheld, angles possibly withheld, and key evidentiary photographs delayed in release. Some suggest that the final moments were intentionally disguised to craft a symbolic narrative for fans and media alike. If Kurt, overwhelmed by fame, orchestrated a controlled, vanishing act framed as tragedy, then the tools of conspiracy would be buried within the police reports, the photo archives, and the silence itself. Within Hidden Clues You Totally Missed, this theory invites the audience to entertain. What if the suicide was a theatrical exit, not a surrender? It shifts the lens. The clues lie not only in what we see, but in what was never shown, what was withheld, what was scrubbed from view. Eldon Hoke, El Duce, and bizarre allegations. Eldon Hoke, known as El Duce, is a provocative footnote in many conspiracy circles. He publicly claimed that Courtney Love offered him $50,000 to kill Cobain, a claim he said he refused. Hoke's death, by train accident shortly afterward, has been interpreted by some as suspicious, feeding the idea of a silencing or payoff. Though his statement lacks corroborated proof, it functions as an incendiary narrative piece. A wild card witness who makes claims and then dies under mysterious circumstances. For your video, Hoke is the kind of figure that intensifies intrigue. His words, his untimely death, and his placement in the murky fringe of Cobain lore become a dark side character, a possible pawn, a vocal provocateur, a witness or scapegoat, but always a reminder that extreme claims linger in the margins of the official story. Kurt Cobain died decades ago, but the mystery surrounding his death seems far from resolved. Among shadows, fragments of forgotten evidence, silenced documents, and new clues rising from the ashes of time, many claim that crucial details were overlooked, and clue number one, above all, is truly shocking. Today, we dive into recent secrets, forensic reanalysis, unearthed documents, and theories that challenge the official narrative. Brace yourself. What you're about to read may turn everything upside down. Recently, the Seattle Police Department began reviewing the case as a cold case and released previously unseen photographs from the scene of Cobain's death. According to reports shared with the press, a receipt for the purchase of 20-gauge shotgun shells, dated April 2, 1994, was found in a bag next to Cobain's foot, evidence that had never been publicly disclosed. This receipt, worth $6.95 from a store named Seattle Guns, directly links ammunition purchases to Kurt's final days. This revelation reopened debates. If he indeed purchased the ammunition so close to the date of his death, it could indicate premeditation, but it also opens room to question the exact sequence of events. Additionally, according to the report, one spent shell casing was found on top of a jacket to the left of the scene, while the shotgun was found over his body with the receiver facing up. A weapons expert suggested that the position of the casing and the firearm were more consistent with a manipulated scene or a post-shot movement, fueling suspicions that the scene was staged. Moreover, in the symbolic case review of 2014, 35mm film photographs, forgotten in an evidence vault for over 20 years, were developed and released. These images revealed never-before-seen angles of the room, displaced objects, and arrangements that didn't match earlier reports. While the police stated that the images would not change the official ruling, many independent analysts disagree. Perhaps the most controversial and disturbing clue lies in a recent handwriting analysis. Forensic experts now claim that the final 4 lines of the so-called suicide note, the part that references Courtney Love and their daughter Frances Bean, appear to have been written in a different hand than the rest of the note. Leaked documents from investigator Jason Jensen suggest that those lines may have been a later addition intended to reinforce the suicide narrative. Even more bizarre, a handwriting practice sheet was allegedly found among Courtney's belongings, filled with phrases similar in structure to those final lines. The implication is chilling. Someone may have been practicing to forge Kurt's handwriting and insert those final, emotionally charged lines into the note to cement the story. Another bombshell came from award-winning filmmaker Ian Halperin, who claimed the police were 1,000% wrong in their ruling and demanded the case be changed from suicide to murder. He publicly challenged Courtney Love to take a polygraph test to clear doubts that have haunted the case for over 3 decades. According to Halperin, the altered handwriting in the suicide letter is a key piece of evidence. Additional reports from March of 2025 suggest the case may be officially reopened. Legal teams in Seattle claim to have new witnesses who were present at the residence on the night of Cobain's death and hold overwhelming proof that contradicts the original narrative. These new statements, if validated, could force a formal investigation to reopen. Alongside these revelations, older controversies have resurfaced with renewed intensity. The absence of fingerprints on the shotgun, the inconsistency between the triple-lethal dose of heroin in Kurt's system and the possibility that he could still pull the trigger. Critics argue that someone with that level of heroin in their bloodstream would be physically incapable of holding, aiming, and firing a weapon. Supporters of the official narrative argue Kurt had developed extreme tolerance from years of use, but that explanation has never satisfied all parties, especially when so much remains hidden. It's important to note that the full autopsy and toxicology reports have never been publicly released due to Washington state law restricting official commentary by medical examiners. This lack of transparency continues to fuel theories of concealment and backroom manipulation. Another widely debated decision was the quick cremation of Cobain's body, which occurred before the complete toxicology results were released. Some theorists claim this move limited the possibility of more in-depth independent investigations. And then there's the mysterious case of Kristen Pfaff, bassist of the band Hole and part of Courtney's close circle, who died from an overdose just months after Kurt. Some claim pages disappeared from her diary after her death, pages that might have held information someone didn't want the world to see. The documentary Soaked in Bleach, still widely discussed, reintroduces audio recordings made by private investigator Tom Grant, originally hired by Courtney. It highlights discrepancies in the police work, alleged witness manipulation, and serious omissions in the handling of evidence. The film reignited the debate between those who believe Kurt committed suicide and those who see signs of a carefully covered-up murder. But what is the number one clue you totally missed? It's precisely this: the graphological manipulation of the suicide note's final lines, the recently revealed receipt for shotgun ammunition, and the positioning of the shell casing. When combined, these 3 elements tell a story that many believe simply does not align with the official narrative. If someone deliberately forged those last lines to make the letter more convincing, then what we've been told all these years may have been scripted. These new revelations have reopened debates that many thought were long settled. With every newly revealed photo and resurfaced document, old questions re-emerge, questions that time tried to bury. Who was really in the house that night? Who wrote those final lines? Why was the receipt hidden for so long? Some argue Kurt was broken, tormented, but incapable of executing such a precise death scene under the influence of such an overwhelming drug dose. Others maintain that he truly did take his own life. The gray area between suicide and murder has only grown deeper. If the case is formally reopened, witnesses may speak, documents may surface, and the official version may finally be challenged in the court of public opinion. But for now, we remain in limbo. The official story holds, the theories multiply, the evidence piles up, and the mystery, instead of dissolving, only grows darker and more complex. The truth may still be out there, waiting in the silence between notes, in the shadows behind photographs, and in the scribbles at the bottom of a torn letter, perhaps written not by the man who left us, but by someone who wanted his silence. Disputes from former friends or colleagues within Kurt Cobain's artistic circle. Not everyone accepted the mainstream legend quietly. Buzz Osborne, longtime friend and musician, publicly criticized documentaries like Montage of Heck, claiming many passages were exaggerated or fabricated. Osborne asserted that Cobain himself sometimes blurred fact and myth, creating mystique as part of his persona. If close friends questioned the truthfulness or selective storytelling of works claiming intimate insight, then those sources merit skepticism. In your video, these dissenting voices serve as critical counterpoints. If people who lived with Kurt doubt the polished narratives, maybe those narratives were always more myth than fact. They invite viewers to re-examine their assumptions and consider that some of the authorized story might be constructed for effect. Family version discrepancies and public disagreements. Finally, we arrive at those with the deepest emotional stake. Family members who diverge from the official account. Courtney Love's father, Hank Harrison, has in interviews asserted that he believes his daughter was involved, not necessarily as assassin, but in having deeper responsibility than acknowledged. Meanwhile, Kurt's grandfather, Leland Cobain, expressed publicly his suspicion that underlying forces, omissions, or cover-ups lay behind the incident. These voices matter, because they speak less from speculation than from grief, loss, and intimate perspective. When those who suffered the most openly claim that the official version falls short, their dissent becomes a clue in itself. In a video about hidden truths, such disagreements are not side notes. They are essential signals that the accepted narrative might omit uncomfortable realities. They draw attention to the possibility that the real story remains concealed in emotional silences, in family conflict, and in those who refuse to let the official version stand unchallenged. Gaps in the police investigation. Critics point to the fact that the inquiry was relatively brief, that not all evidence was clearly documented for the public, that there was a delay in recovering the weapon, and that fingerprint analysis was not performed in a timely manner, all elements that feed the suspicions of many fans and researchers. Despite these theories, there is substantial evidence supporting the suicide verdict. Kurt's history of depression, the record of previous attempts, his prolonged and well-documented drug use, the farewell note, and testimonies from close acquaintances. Many forensic specialists confirm that no conclusive evidence of homicide has ever been found. Still, the figure of Kurt Cobain became a mystery larger than life. His art, emotional intensity, tragedy, and the final enigma turned him into a myth. Pain, talent, and contradictions blend into a story that resists simple interpretation. Some view him as a martyr of alternative music, others as a victim of hidden forces, and still others as an artist who simply could not carry the unbearable weight of being Kurt Cobain, a name that, to this day, echoes between riffs, laments, and unanswered questions. The truth may be fragmented across testimonies, disputed documents, and silent gaps, and it is in that twilight zone between fact and myth where the fascination of the story. What if, after all this, the story of Kurt Cobain is still far from being fully understood? What if every clue, every hidden detail, every suspicious line, every forced silence is actually part of a much bigger puzzle, one that the media chose not to piece together? You've just dived into the darkest and most controversial layers behind one of the greatest tragedies in modern music, but there's still so much you may have never heard, or that was simply erased over time. So, if this video made you think, question, or see the story from a different angle, now's the time to show that you're part of this investigation too. Hit the like button right now. It helps this video reach more people and keeps the conversation alive. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe right now, because that's essential for YouTube to keep recommending content like this to you, and it allows us to keep bringing you intense, thought-provoking, and twist-filled videos like this one. Now, tell me in the comments, which of these clues shocked you the most? Do you believe the official version, or do you think there's something much deeper behind it all? Your opinion could open someone else's eyes, so don't skip the comments section. And if you want to dive even deeper into this dark and fascinating world, the video that's showing up on your screen right now is even more impactful than this one. Click on it and get ready to uncover even more disturbing revelations. You will be surprised.